Hello, everybody. Just
Hi.
just checking the volumes here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. We are live. We're going to go ahead and share the stream if you're just joining us. This is our big Pride commemoration and celebration. We have a great show for you guys. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and share the stream, you guys. How's
I
everybody
joined the
today?
DJ just now. I see the love of my life is in the audience. Hey, boo!
I'm alive. I'm awake.
I know this has been a long day already, you guys. We just came off a great makeup and chat.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Geneva's still here. I think she just went outside. She took all her makeup off though.
Oh, she did
Yeah.
awesome. Geneva did
Yeah.
awesome.
It's beautiful. And I have my bestie Paul.
Hi.
Hi.
And right now, I just again, I am sharing our stream so that people know that we are on.
If you guys see this, share it.
Right. That's an order.
Just kidding. Or are we?
Oh, right. All right. So we are streaming on YouTube and Facebook today, even though our stream primarily is a live stream for those of you guys who have been wondering. It is a live stream, a Facebook stream, and we upload our Facebook streams to YouTube. So hopefully we'll get some of our YouTube folks rolling in. To begin, I don't know where to begin. We have such a good show. We have a panel guest here, Ben. How you doing, Ben?
Hey, Ben.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here with you guys. I love being with you guys. You know that.
Yeah, we're happy to have you here.
Yes.
I see all you guys rolling in on YouTube and on Facebook. As you come in, make sure that you share the stream. And I guess we can go ahead and get started by going around the glass table and talking about our own experiences. Let's start with our guest, Ben.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so why don't you give us a little bit about your experiences and you know,
Yeah.
I I
Well,
have some prepared
you guys.
questions by the way, just so you know.
Okay, awesome. Um, I love it. Get the nervous laugh out. So, you may have seen my YouTube video. I made a YouTube video on my journey for healing and
Yes.
raising awareness to the community, and that was just telling a story. I didn't want to be defined as being gay. I always was afraid of the label, and I really had to fall in love for the first time to be able to accept it. And I remember in school, so many kids would ask me, they would say, "Are you gay? Are you not gay?" And it was really confusing with the programming that we have, especially I think in many high-level control groups and religions. But as Jehovah's Witnesses, it's always that it's either you do this or you die. So it always feels like somebody kind of has a gun to your head. And that plays such psychological warfare within oneself for any sin, anything that is labeled as a sin according to that group. And so the journey was a long one, is a long one, but life is beautiful when you look at it that way. That I heard a beautiful quote recently about a spiral, that life is like a spiral, that we keep returning to similar programs to learn a deeper lesson, to see a different facet of love within our life. And so now going back, all the people, there were many people in the organization that were like, "Oh, your walk and talk is a little gay." And that's a very homophobic organization. And I'm so thankful that they said those things now. Because had they not said it, I would have stayed in the programming. Had they not said anything, I would have never looked at myself in the mirror to say, what makes me tick? What makes me work? What do I love? What am I drawn to? I think we're very much drawn away from our path. We're said to not follow what's in our heart. You know, we're told only follow this. And so the further I get onto my journey and path, the more healing I'm able to do and really just embrace me for who I am. And that's why I'm happy to be here for Pride.
Yes, and we're happy to have you. Like I said, once again, thank you so much for coming on, Ben. I know it's been a long time in the making. So, can you tell us how, because I know your background, your fundamentalist religion was the Jehovah's Witnesses, like most of us here on the panel. How did that affect? You talked about how it affected your queerness, but how did it help you? How did you cope coming out and gain? And how did you gain confidence?
I'm always been, I think just me as a person, I'm what they would call a conservative gay in
Okay.
in the world. So for me, that's just me being conservative, and I was born in a very conservative Republican state, and so I needed that one-on-one relationship experience. And when I finally found what is true love, I was able to suddenly recognize what was false love, simply
Hmm.
put. And so I had always been raised that God is love, and so that's what I held on to, was just looking for love anywhere in the universe that was genuine and that resonated deeply within me. And so love is what helped me cope with the lack of love that we experience, to be quite honest.
Right. And you not in addition to telling us your experience today, you have a video you want to show us a little bit of it anyway, right?
Yeah, so for me on my journey, when I was, the Bible wasn't doing it for me anymore, and I was kind of just asking universe to show me love out there. And I stumbled across this series called Sense8, which is globally popular. Many people have watched it and love it and relate to it. But there was a specific speech that was written by the writers of that show and performed by um, a beautiful actress, Jamie Clayton, if I'm remembering her name correctly.
Okay.
And she read this speech from the perspective of a trans person. And it was so moving and heartwarming. I just had to share that. So I recommend anybody watch this video, and I'll read the speech for anything that we don't play.
All right. So let's play a little bit of that so you can know where to at least find it, right? Here we go. Wait, hang on. Let me make sure that the sound is there.
Been thinking about my life and all of the mistakes that I've made. The ones that stay with me, the ones that I regret, are the ones that I made because of fear. For a long time, I was afraid to be who I am because I was taught by my parents that there's something wrong with someone like me, something offensive, something you would avoid, maybe even pity, something that you could never love.
All right. Well, that's a little bit of it there. And you say you're gonna read the poem that she was.
So yeah, that gives a little gist of it. But what she said, I've been thinking about my life and all the mistakes that I've made. The ones that stay with me, the ones that I regret, are the ones that I made because of fear. For a long time, I was afraid to be who I am because I was taught by my parents that there's something wrong with someone, something offensive, something you would avoid, maybe even pity, something that you could never. My mom, she's a fan of St. Thomas Aquinas. She calls pride a sin. And of all the venal and mortal sins, St. Thomas saw pride as the queen of the seven deadliest. He saw it as the ultimate gateway sin that would turn you quickly into a sinaholic. But hating isn't a sin on that list. Neither is shame. I was afraid of this parade because I wanted so badly to be a part of it. So today I'm marching for that part of me that was once afraid to march, and for all the people who can't march, the people who are living lies like I did. today I march to remember that I'm not just a me, but I'm also a we, and we march with pride. So I can't say it better than that. I can't hear you.
Am I on mute? Sorry, I'm gonna put the link in the comments below for you guys. Go ahead and check that out so you can here it is there. Thank you so much, Ben. And you look, you have this you want to tell us a little bit about the flyer that we're about to look at here?
Yes. I have to say,
Sorry,
okay, so
it's gonna cover you up for a second.
no
There it is
problem.
there.
What we've done is I'm all about being on your own path and helping people be on their own path. Don't follow me. Don't follow Jesus. Follow what is in your heart. And so I love using cards, as you know. For Chessa's birthday, we did that awesome card reading. So scientifically, I like to use cards as the resonance, things that vibrate with you, and show you what is necessary on your path. So me and a local doctor have come up. She's a professional in the area, so she likes to go by Aunt Esther. So Aunt Esther and I have come up with, I've done the artwork, and she's helped me with some of the placement of the words and the meanings according to the cards, according to original cartomancy. So that's what this flyer is about. So we wanted it to be done for today, but she said that she needed a little bit more time to meditate on some of the card meanings and maybe do some adjustments. So the few cards that we have prepared, that's what's on the flyer, and it is coming out this summer. It's called the Rainbow Labyrinth. It's a card deck for gameplay and like self-understanding, spiritual exploration.
All right, let me flash it again, and that's this here, coming this summer. Ben, this is awesome. You created these cards. And
Yeah,
they're
so
awesome.
this is all my original artwork, and the Rainbow Labyrinth, because if you're familiar with labyrinths, when you walk in one, if you have something that you're contemplating or worrying about, you go to dead ends, turn around and come back. And it's weird because even pacing back and forth recalibrates the hemispheres of your mind. So for conflict resolution, like if you're having an argument with somebody, if you, girl, go walk around the block a few times, it will recalibrate the hemispheres of your brain and you'll feel better about everything. So that's why it's the Rainbow Labyrinth. We're all on a journey every day.
Yes, we are. And I just want to tell everybody, thank you so much for joining us on YouTube and Facebook. There's also a watch party going on in some groups. I just want to let you know, you guys are commenting in there. We can't see your comments, but we'll check in periodically throughout the stream. So hi, Ramona. I know you're not on the main show today. So thank you. I mean, the main stream. But if you want your comments to be flashed across the stream, you'll want to go to the mainstream on the Glass Table page so that we can see your comments there. We'll see your comments and acknowledge them, but if you want them across the screen, you'll need to go there. Thank you so much, Ben, for sharing your experience and sharing your journey with us. So Chessa, you're next because that's the order of the screen.
Oh,
Did you want to talk about your experiences as an ally, or?
Okay, so I identify as pansexual. However, I have never been with someone who has been outside of a binary of male or female, but I am attracted to people regardless of how they look or their physical makeup. Really, it's more for me about like that connection with them, especially like mentally. I feel like you can't really like get along with someone or really hit it off long term if you don't have that mental connection. So for me, physical stuff doesn't usually get in the way. It's more a mental thing. But yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, I always had questions, and I would ask my parents like, "What if I'm attracted to girls? You know, like, is that a problem? Is that normal?" And so there was a lot of conversations. They were not too happy about that. I remember when I told them that I was going to get married, they were happy because they were afraid that I was going to run away with a girl before then. So they were like, "Oh, she's with a guy now. She's safe," you know. That didn't last, thank God. But I mean, we all wake up in our own way, and for a while, I had to find myself and figure out how I identified and who I was, and it's tough when you come out of an organization that's so high control. I mean, you don't really have the ability to express yourself or learn what you like or dislike. And like Ben said, it makes you really polarized inside yourself because you have all these natural feelings and inclinations and attachments, but at the same time, it's wrong, it's evil, right? So you're just constantly fighting with yourself, and it's a lot like cognitive dissonance just leaving. So it's been a journey, and then I've met amazing people along the way, and learned that there's all kinds of different kinds of people on a spectrum, and they're all fabulous and beautiful in their own way, and that's what today is about. So I'm just happy to be here.
Well, thank you so much, Chessa. And you have someone with you. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
here to support or if you wanted to share your own experiences.
Oh, I'm Paul. I identify as queer. He, him pronouns are fine. I'm here because Chessa asked me.
We're happy to have you.
I'm running for local office. Chess is a good friend, and I really support her work getting people out of high control organizations and helping people to recover from that mindset. It's absolutely brilliant. Been an activist my whole life, and it's a pleasure to be here with you guys.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And we love Chessa too, and we support all of her efforts too. So, yay!
Real good work. You guys are all doing real good work here.
Thank you. And Molly, so you're up next.
Well, hey everyone. So I identify as asexual, aromantic, and agender. That covers about all the spectrums. And basically, well, I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, so obviously I had a very tremendous relationship with sex and with just gender and with all of that. And basically, I had a hard time even after I left, figuring out what's wrong with me, because I was like, okay, something is definitely off about me, because you feel when you're different in conversations, and when your behavior doesn't match your peers who are your age and who are in your class or at work or whatever. So after I left, I started to introspect and just self-reflect. And I had my best friend who came out as gay, and once that happened, that was the gateway and the just end of all my indoctrination about gender and sex and all that. I was like, okay, well, this person needs me, so out with the homophobia and in with the love, because this person will need you, this person will need your support, your love, maybe even shelter or stuff like that, because he didn't come out to his parents just then. And we started talking, and the discussion went to the gender and the sexual spectrum, and then I realized, oh wait, this asexual thing seems how I feel, because I was not attracted to people like that. Like, I couldn't describe how sexual attraction feels, but it's definitely not how I feel about people. I'm like, I don't want to, jump someone's bones. I'm not, like squirming to see anyone naked or any, and definitely don't try to flirt with me. You have two outcomes. I either notice and I'm gonna be like, no, thanks, no, and leave the conversation right away, or I'm not gonna notice and you're gonna look like an idiot. You're gonna look like an idiot trying to flirt with someone who has no capacity to comprehend it. And I had a few years after I left, like about 3 to 4 years after I left, where I put my finger on things. I left home, I started working, making my own money. I moved here, I live alone now. So, I have time to introspect. I have time to really set boundaries how I want to. And that's how, I kind of realized that I'm basically not attached to a gender expression of any sort, masculine or feminine or anything in between. My moods dictate how I present myself. And, if I have time to do makeup like this and look like this, and I want to look like this, I will. But then tomorrow, you won't catch me wearing any makeup because I'm just not in the mood. So, and about, romantic attraction. Romantic attraction is also not really my thing. I can't imagine being in a relationship, basically. I'm just here like, okay, thanks. I don't really want it, no. And there's the, obvious thing about me not be, me being asexual and agender. I bet that it comes to play with my genetic disorder that I have mentioned previously. It's a genetic disorder that causes me to not have the sex chromosomes. So basically, genetically speaking, I'm not a woman or a man. And I guess the lack of that chromosome comes into play on why I don't experience attraction or attachment to, any kind of like gender expression. But definitely being a JW dwarfs how you look at it, because you're like, it's a big no, it's shameful, no. And then once once you say I do, you just have to open your legs anytime the man wants to, because you gotta be his little whore once you say I do. But you have to be like the Virgin Mary outside the bedroom anyway, which is a weird predicament that you have to like readjust and recalibrate once you leave. So that's me, I guess.
Thank you so much, Molly. And now we have Emma.
Okay, so when I was a Jehovah's Witness, I never even considered the fact that I wasn't straight. And I remember I used to buy the Clothes Show magazine and cut out loads of advertisements. I was into black and white pictures of men and women, and I'd put them up on my bedroom wall. I filled a big wall. And my mum one day said to me, "You need to take all those pictures of men down off your wall." I was like, okay. So I took them down, but I was still happy looking at the women on my wall, but I didn't connect in my brain what that meant. And then when I left, I started talking to a friend of mine, and she said to me that she thought she was bi. And then I thought to myself, well, I'm attracted to women, so maybe I'm bi as well. Me and her, we'd kind of go to the pub, get drunk, and we'd kiss each other, but it wasn't like a big thing. We kind of laughed it off a bit. And then there was a girl that worked behind the bar, and I actually had a bit of a crush on her. And I just thought, okay, so I'm definitely attracted to women. And then now I can kind of consider myself pansexual, because I wouldn't just go for women. I'd be cool with like trans and other genres. I wouldn't stick to just like male or strictly female. But I consider myself kind of, I don't know, trans curious, not trans curious, pan curious, because I've never actually had a relationship with, in the pansexual, can't think of the word, genre. So I'm open to it, but I am really kind of fussy. I need a mental connection and a physical connection. And my physical attraction to someone is really limited. So I don't go looking for it. I just think like, if it's going to happen at the end of the day, I'm going to meet someone that I'm going to connect with on both levels, and I just take it from there whenever it happens. But it kind of makes me laugh looking back now that how way off my mum was by saying, take those men down off your wall. And I didn't even realise it myself. So that's basically me.
Thank you so much, Emma. And so for me, I'm also an ex Jehovah Witness on this on the panel. I think all of us on the panel right now are ex Jehovah Witnesses. And uh, so sorry, I got Bella's trying to find my stream. Uh, I was trying to get her together. It's just not gonna work today. So for me, I came out of a fundamentalist religion, so my idea of homosexuality, gay, lesbian relationships, all of that has been filtered through that religion, that worldview. And I would say that the Jehovah Witnesses go a little bit further than a fundamentalist religion because of my experience with my friend who was gay and a Jehovah's Witness. And he talked about how, I guess my experiences, through listening through him, he talked about how the Jehovah Witnesses wouldn't speak to him or didn't want to work with him on service. They didn't want their children to associate with him. There was no sleepovers. He didn't go places. He was very sheltered. If you can imagine being a Jehovah's Witness and you have already renounced a lot of your relationships and friendships just to join this religion, but now take it a step further. If you're a person that is a gay or part of the LGBT community as a Jehovah's Witness, you're not only it's even a more secluded life than you would have as a Jehovah's Witness. I seen it firsthand. I seen the tears, and and at first, as an ally, I was thinking to myself, well, why don't you just marry somebody? Just being, and just that'll just solve it, so you don't have these problems with the Jehovah's Witnesses. And one day he just broke it down to me while he was doing my hair, because he used to do my hair. And he said, I'm not he didn't. Well, we have our way of talking, but he basically said, like, basically, what part of I don't want a vagina don't you understand? And kind of broke it down to me that even though he knew of relationships in the Jehovah's Witnesses, he knew people that were gay and were marrying it anyway, just so they wouldn't have that stigma, or that parents wouldn't figure out that they were gay. Because as a certain question, you get asked certain questions of a certain age if you're a male, especially if you're a male in the Jehovah's Witnesses. And he was very good looking, had a good job, and he was of a certain age where people was asking, like, why aren't you married? So, some people, to get alleviated the pressure, some of his friends went on and got married, but he refused to do it. And I just remember watching his struggle, and when he told me he had AIDS, I don't want to cry, but watching him, uh, go through the challenges of not trying to be found out as a Jehovah's Witness, because he clearly didn't believe the teachings anymore. But on top of that, having the struggle and having the stigma of AIDS, on top of being gay. And nobody knew. Well, some people knew about it, and the few people that did know about it would try to out him, which was horrible. And one day he was outed, and he stopped coming to the hall. He went through cycles of suicide, like suicidal ideations and that sort of thing. And he eventually never came back, but he disconnected from his. But with that, his experience, it was eye opening to me that I needed to be a human in a situation, that have a human interaction, even though I was really brainwashed, and if I can just say, very bigoted. I just was. I was a bigot, and I thought I was helping. So I like to say that my friendships with him and reconnecting with a friend who's now who's trans, and other people in the gay community has expanded my view, has turned it upside down. And when you see people suffering or going through a struggle, I think on a human level you connect with that, and it has changed. Literally, my encounters with people in the community has changed my life. Now, as far as my own personal business, I'm gonna say my attraction is my husband, and I'll just leave it at that. But so um We do have other people who want to have. We have other guests who want to talk about their experiences. So though you have our experiences around the glass table here, and our panel guests Ben. And why don't we actually bring us some of them on so they can talk about their experiences too before we move further into our program. And the next person that we have is Carmen. Hello. You're on mute.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing? Hang on 1 second here.
I'm demisexual, and kind of a long story with my gender is that you would consider me gender fluid, because I have dissociative identity disorder. So if one of my alters is a guy, then he's going to be a guy. And most of them consider themselves trans. And then actually, our host is non-binary. So, like presenting to the world, we're gender fluid, but it's technically called system fluid. And I'm just a cis female, but personally.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit? I'm sorry, I had to go off screen. You know, I have my family and my life. You know, with live streaming, y'all.
Yeah.
Can you tell us? Because I know that you're an ex Jehovah's Witness. Can you
Mm-hmm.
tell us how that affected your worldview and how that affected your
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So basically, growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, I was pansexual, and I just thought everyone was, because it's kind of like the way they teach it is, okay, you make a choice. You're either going to be straight or you're going to be gay, and that's a choice you make. And in my case, it kind of was a choice, you know, because I was attracted to basically everybody. When I was 9 years old in school, I had 2 boyfriends and a girlfriend, and we were all together. So it's like this pansexual polyamorous relationship when I was 9. But then, you know, you get a little older and you're 12 and you're still doing that, and your parents are like, you're not allowed to do this. So they started cracking down on that stuff. And I was attracted to my best girlfriends all along, but I just figured everybody was, and you just have to choose to be straight. So I got married when I was 18, and that was horrible. I'd rather not go into details.
That's and Carmen, yeah, you don't have to go there.
But Molly, like Molly said, you know, you get married as a Jehovah's Witness woman, and you're just expected to have sex whenever. So it's really, it's not a good experience at all. So
Right.
yeah.
So how did you cope with finally coming out to everyone else? Or how was that?
Well, basically, when I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, something in me just opened up, and I thought it was Jesus at the time, because I just was suddenly full of love for everybody, and it was like the more free I was, and the more I could feel my spirit, the more I felt love for everyone, including romantic love for other women. And so I was like, how can this be wrong? Because loving people isn't wrong. It just makes absolutely no sense that would be something that you're not supposed to do.
Right.
And, you know, everybody always argues, they still argue that it's wrong, but they can't really give a good reason. Like, who is it hurting? Who's being hurt here? So, and then my niece came out as gay. And at the time, I tried to talk her out of it, of course, you know, because that was back when I was still a Jehovah's Witness, was when she first came out as gay. But then, you know, when I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, I was like, oh my gosh, I was so stupid trying to talk her out of it. I can't believe how embarrassing this is now. Because I used all their rhetoric about basically, you just have to choose to be straight because that's the way you're supposed to do it. So yeah, that was embarrassing.
Your paper, I don't know if you remember this. It's a long time ago, but when I was an ex Jehovah Witness Christian before, I wasn't anymore, you had a paper, a fabulous paper, making that argument. Who does it really hurt?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Basically, I decided to be an advocate for LGBT rights as soon as I figured it out, which worked out pretty good for me because my son is trans. So my son is trans. He's non-binary, but he uses he, him pronouns. And my fiance is trans. And I'm technically trans because of the system fluid thing. So like, I'm glad I figured that out early instead of having a trouble when my son came out,
right. That's just amazing.
And fighting against myself, basically. I'm glad I didn't have to fight against my male alters at that point either.
So, you said that you are. My next question was whether you were involved in activism, and you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I see you in the groups, especially if that topic come up. You all over them, honey.
Yeah. Well, Christians are so, even if they don't think they're hateful, they're still saying this is wrong. And basically, we can't fully accept you, and God can't fully accept you, and you're going to hell. I mean, even when they're not hateful, they still believe those things, and that is hateful. That's not accepting people, and it's so hurtful.
Yeah.
So hurtful. I had a friend who, when I was going through my divorce, and I ended up in a women's shelter, it was very traumatic. That's when all my alters started coming out. So I felt like God had abandoned me. And of course, his reaction was, well, you've got to fight this attraction to women. That's why God has abandoned you. So, I hadn't changed anything at that point. Nothing in my life had changed other than the fact that I left my abusive relationship and I was trying to get on with my life. And I just felt like everything was going wrong and my prayers weren't being answered. And I felt really alone.
Yeah.
And, people like him just made it worse.
So what would you say to someone, because in your position, who, or anybody who's thinking about coming out as a Jehovah's Witness, or probably, that's pretty precarious coming out as a Jehovah's Witness, but I mean, our audience is to PMOs and to Jehovah's Witnesses and the like. So what would you say to people of fundamentalist religions who are struggling with identity and gender? And
well, first of all, when I first accepted the fact that, I'm basically pansexual, my son is trans, I was a Lutheran, and you can still be a Christian if that's what you choose to do. The Bible does not say, the word homosexual should not be in the Bible. That was a mistranslation. And if you look into it, you'll find that Jesus did not teach that it's a sin. So just don't feel like God has abandoned you because you love people. That is not true. That is so not true.
And that was good advice, Carmen. We thank you so much for coming on for our Pride commemoration. We are going to go to our next guest, but you might want to stick around backstage, or we do have a after party, and that's also for our audience. We have an after party where we'll be sharing more experience in a more relaxed setting.
Got my little Pride lovebirds taking a
sip. Hi, Pride lovebird.
Bye, guys.
See you later. Thank you so much for coming on. That was a really interesting experience. I'm so glad we had Carmen on. And so now we have Bethany. Bethany, hello. I'm sorry. I'm just. She's like, am I on? I'm sorry. Can you hear us really good?
Oh yeah, I was on mute. I wanted
Thank
to
you.
get off that. So
Sorry, I'm going back and forth. I got a little issue here, but Bethany, thank you so much for coming on. And thank you for hanging out backstage. I know you've been back there for a minute. So why don't you start telling us a little bit about
yeah.
your experiences and how you're an ex Jehovah's Witness too, right?
Oh man, I am an ex Jehovah's Witness. Yes. Happily ex Jehovah's Witness. Yeah. So I have always been attracted to women. I didn't know that was allowed. They didn't like in the church. They didn't really talk about women being with women being wrong. But I do remember as a kid they were on stage. Some elder was giving a talk or sermon or whatever you want to call it, and he said that he was trash talking homosexuals, and I realized that I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. And so I really checked out at that point because I'm like, why am I here going at this church that's, if they knew. So I just kind of struggled along, I was a teenager still, so I, didn't really have the ability to just leave and, get kicked out and leave. So I just tolerated it, and like I had a crush on a girl in the congregation, and I'd be looking over there during the sermons and stuff, and people were like, "Oh, you have a crush on so and so's brother," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's the brother that I like." Mm-hmm. Even though I was not looking at the brother, I was looking at the sister. So, but once I decided to switch congregations because there was too much drama at my other one, and I had moved. There was another sermon, and they were talking about gay people again, and they called gay people mentally diseased. And again, I thought, why am I here doing this? Like, if they knew I was gay, like, I would be kicked out. So I left. I left in the middle of the sermon or whatever, and I never came back. That was my last. That was my last meeting. And then I was gonna tell my dad. Yeah. And so when I told my dad, at first he was like, you're my daughter and I love you and nothing will change that. If that's your choice, and he kept calling it a choice. If that's what you choose to do, then, I'm okay with it. I don't like what you're doing, but I love you as a daughter. And, so I got like the best reaction that you could hope for with him. And then a day later, he called me back and told me that he needed to distance himself from me because of my choices, and that we couldn't really have a relationship like we used to, which was devastating because I'm very, I was very close with my dad. Um, we had conversations all the time. He helped guide me through, rough times, and, I would talk to him about, all sorts of things, stuff that he was thinking, and, it was a good chance to talk about, my mom who had passed away. He would tell stories about that and stuff. So losing that connection with him was devastating.
I'm sorry.
My two sisters are disfellowshipped, kicked out of the church and stuff, so they were still there. But then when I came out to my friends, my worldly friends, who apparently were like bad association and you're not supposed to talk to them and stuff, like they had amazing reactions. And one of my friends actually told me that she was hurt by the fact that I didn't want to tell her because I was afraid, because she was Catholic, that she would judge me. And so I waited to tell her, and she's like, "You've been my best friend for so long, and even though I have this religious stuff, like it's not going to change the fact that I love you as a friend, and like nothing will get in the way of that." So, and they like subtly help get me there to that point. Like they didn't they didn't give me presents like for Christmas and stuff until like a couple weeks later. And then they were just friendship gifts. But I remember them giving me like rainbow stuff all the time. And I didn't put it together that they were like, we know it's okay to tell us. I was completely oblivious. I was like, oh, this rainbow blanket, I love it. And not registering that it was meant to say, it was okay to tell them. So it's just interesting that, they preach about how bad the worldly folks are, but they have been more supportive and more, like my best friend's mom is, a surrogate mom for me because, I lost that relationship with my dad and everything. So, so that's that part of it. I have unfortunately experienced, some, homophobia too, the worst experience I think, was I was in the drive-through, the car that I had at the time, like I had put a rainbow like sticker in the back window, so it wasn't like I was shy about saying that I was gay. My car was gay too, so so it was wearing the rainbow, and I was in a drive-through to get food before I went to work. And this guy started screaming at me and calling me all sorts of names. And then he got out of his truck and like came towards me and tried to open the door and was like screaming at me and stuff. And I'm in the drive-through. There's a car behind me and then him in front of me, so I couldn't really like get out of that situation. So it was pretty intense. And so then he finally left, and I thought that was the end of it. So I got my food and I started driving to work, and the car was following me. He decided that he was going to follow me, and he was basically chasing me from when I was on my way to work, and he kept trying to run me off the road, and he had his window down and was still screaming obscenities and calling me a dyke and
Wow.
all of that. So yeah, And I worked in a mall at the time, so I called the mall security, who had like an officer that worked there too. I called him on the way, and I told him what was going on, that I was being chased, and he was trying to run me off the road. And so they told me where to come into the mall parking lot. And so I did, and then there was 2 cop cars waiting for him when I pulled in. So I pulled in, and then he pulled in, like, obviously, like, right after. And, you know, he was about to get out of his car and, you know, start some stuff, I guess. I don't know what he was planning, but he had a bat, so probably nothing good to come out of that. I mean, we weren't playing catch or anything like that. So that was pretty scary, and the police officers surrounded him, and he ended up getting arrested
I'm so sorry that
for that
happened.
whole incident. Yeah. So, yeah, that's my story for that.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit, or tell us what you would tell someone, or tell the Bethany a long time ago. Like, if you could talk to her now, like if you had somebody else is in your shoes, or thinking about coming out, or not sure, or especially as a Jehovah's Witness, what would you say? Do you have any advice or something that helped you?
I think knowing that it would get better would be something to say to someone who's just starting out, that it is pretty rough in the beginning. I remember when I told my sister that I was gay, we were in a restaurant, and so I told her I was gay after, you know, we were eating, and she was like, "What?" And so I was like, "I'm gay," and she's like, "Wait, what?" So then I repeated it, I'm gay, you know. I did it like 3 or 4 times, and then the guy at the table over was like, "She's gay." To my sister, because it wasn't registering, and the guy was overhearing me trying to tell her that that I was gay. So, and my sister had a good reaction after that. You know, she was great with it. But yeah, that was pretty funny. But I mean, overall, I mean, I did have that experience, but overall, it's been good. I was in a relationship for 16 years, and it was the best relationship I've ever been in. And it was with a woman, and it just reaffirmed the fact that I had made the right choice, even though it was very hard to do. And it just, like, my main thing is that it will get better. It does. It sucks in the beginning sometimes, and that you don't have to have a blood family, that you can make your own family of people that support you and, you know, love you for who you are and don't want to change a thing about you, and just appreciate the beauty that you have within, and, you know, treasure those people. And ironically, they were people that I was supposed to be avoiding, and, you know, the bad people that were not good. And then how one of the guests said that it was, you know, that homosexuality was never mentioned by Jesus. That was something that I told my dad. He wasn't very appreciative of that at the time, but I was I was like, you know, Jesus never mentioned it, and if it was that important, he would have. And he was supposed to, you know, he replaced the Old Testament, where there is something about being gay and it being bad. Like, that's how they, you know, the Bible thumpers, I guess you would call them, that, you know, that's what they use, is in the Old Testament. In the New Testament, that when Jesus was doing his sermons and stuff, he never mentioned that at all. And then also there's hundreds of species of animals that are gay and have gay relationships. So it's found in nature. It's a natural thing to feel feelings for another, a different sex or different, gender identity or something like that. Like it's okay to feel that. It's natural. And even though the experiences that I've had have been really rough, I wouldn't change anything about it because I think it's made me a stronger person and make me appreciate the fact that, I've gone through this rough time and come out stronger for it. And now I can help other people who are going through the same thing and starting at the beginning about how they should come out and how, if they're still stuck in the church and, being able to support them and have some answers for them about how it really does get better and it is worth it. And that living a life in a closet is never good and never, it's just, it's draining on your soul not to be, true to yourself. And when I left, I didn't realize how much I had a burden about, what I was carrying. And as soon as I left and stuff, there was like this huge weight off my shoulders. And I felt like I could take on the world and,
That's good.
and everything was right, even though I had bad experiences. It's definitely something that, um, it's definitely worth it, to be honest, and, live your truth for sure.
Well, thank you so much, Bethany, for sharing all your experiences and allowing us to, through the ups and downs, like you said, that you've come out, that you wouldn't change a thing. And we just thank you for letting us partner along in your journey today. And thank you for you trusting our platform to do it. All right,
And I'm
so
so sorry that happened to you, Chick. That must have been really scary to go through that.
Yeah, it was. It was very rewarding at the end to have him get arrested. But before that, it was terrifying. And before that, I'd never experienced anything so dramatically homophobic like that. Like we'd get, when me and my partner were walking, if we're holding hands and stuff, we'd get looks and, people would mutter stuff about, effing lesbian or whatever. And, that kind of thing, like more subtle stuff. But I've never had that experience where there's so much rage there. And it's like crazy to me that there's so much rage there when it's none of their business who I have in my bed, like that's none of your business. And I don't understand why people get so worked up about other people. Like people deserve to be happy, and if being with someone of the same sex or a different gender identity, if you want to do that and that makes you happy, you should have the right and the support to do that. Like it doesn't hurt the person that's so hateful, but they just do, and that's sad because you're missing out on a relationship with a really great person, and over something stupid like I ask people who have asked me like negatively, like why are you a lesbian? Da, da, da. And I'm like, well, did you choose to be heterosexual? Because I think that just came up and you just, liked men, or, that's your thing. That's fine. But it's just as natural for me to love, a woman as it is for you to love a man. So
Well,
I don't understand what the big deal is, but other people obviously do. So
Well, thank you so much, Bethany, for coming on. And I just wanted to let you know that we are sharing more of our experiences, and we're inviting all of our guests to our after show. And we're also inviting our audience to our after show as well. If you want to come on and share your experiences, I do see your comments. And normally we do have a section where we hear from our audience and you can talk to us, but we're actually pushing the audience type of participation kind of to the after show. So if you want to be heard and want to talk about your experiences too, you have there's a link that I put in this stream, that and the next stream, so you'll be able to come on and share your experiences too. Thank you so much, Bethany, for coming on.
Thank you.
And now we have Natalie.
Hi.
Thank you so much.
Hi.
Natalie, you have been a trooper. You have been backstage probably the longest.
Hey, it's great to watch and listen to you guys. I learn so much all the time.
Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you so much for sharing your journey here today. And unlike some of the members that have come that are on the panel, you are not an ex Jehovah's Witness, right?
Correct.
Why don't you tell us a little bit? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm actually an ex Mormon. So if any of you have heard of the Mormon religion, the LDS religion, or now they like to be known as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They kind of changed their name a couple different times, but yeah, I'm an ex-Mormon, so I no longer cater to that religion, and I actually consider it to be a cult. It's very cult-like.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about your experiences, your background as an ex-Mormon, as well as I had an awesome question, but I lost my notes.
Hey, it's all good.
So, here it is.
Later.
How fundamentalism affected you? And you're coming out and everything. Yeah.
It's extremely orthodox. It's very similar to Jehovah's Witness religion, meaning that you have to follow a strict set of rules to get into heaven and to be considered good in the eyes of God and to deserve his love. And so in the Mormon religion, they believe in a Godhead, so consisting of Jesus Christ, God, and then the Holy Ghost. So
yeah,
that's kind of like what they believe that way.
So
and then
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. I'm interrupting you. Go ahead, Shah.
And so then I haven't mentioned quite yet my sexuality, so I want to shout out to that real quick. So I prefer the pronouns she, her. I'm a cis woman, and I am also bisexual. So I'm attracted to, bisexual just means attracted to 2 or more genders. And if my attraction was like a pie chart, I'm 80% attracted to women, 10% attracted to men, and then like 10% attracted to other genders. So yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, so I have a podcast called Ambisextrous Apostate. And to kind of explain the title, it's kind of long and a mouthful. Ambisextrous kind of goes along with ambidextrous, meaning you can write with 2 hands. And for me, I'm attracted to, 2 genders, but I've also kind of seen that I think I might be attracted to other genders. I haven't ever really explored it too much because I'm only 20 and I just left the cult a year ago. So growing up, I had to be in the closet. I was in the closet until a year ago because the Mormon religion is very against homosexuality and transgender individuals. And so it's very difficult, and I never felt safe coming out because I was always told that either homosexuality was a choice or it was just a mental illness and it was something that could be cured. So it kind of like depended on the timeline of when the church was saying different things because there's tons of contradictions throughout the years, because Mormonism was founded in like 1830 and is still prevalent today. So they've always changed their minds on different topics, especially homosexuality, because now they're saying, now the church says, oh, we don't know what causes homosexuality, but we do know it's a trial and you are not allowed to act on it in any way. So
Well, we are, the Ex Jehovah's Witnesses are very aware of changing doctrine and new lights. So you right, we kind of like twinsies when it comes to that. So we definitely know what that is about. But what our audience might not know is something that you helped enlighten me on the other day. Could you tell us a little bit about their reparative therapy?
Yeah, it's also called conversion therapy as
Yeah,
well. So the church owns and operates 4 different colleges, universities. One of them is called BYU, or Brigham Young University, named after their second prophet of their church. And at BYU, they used to practice conversion therapy, and what it is that it's changed throughout the years, but it started out with gay individuals, gay, lesbian, queer, anything of that sort, would have to go to this sort of like camp, or I don't know, stay somewhere, and they'd have to watch gay porn. And there was this device that would be attached to their genitals, and it would track whether they were aroused in any way by seeing, someone of their opposite sex in a pornographic way. And if they were aroused, they were electrocuted. And it was super bad. So there's that type. And then there's another type where you are drugged. And if you are watching gay porn, they make you watch it. And then they give you these drugs that make you throw up and really sick. So they think that it'll make you associate being gay and acting on it and, someone's body to be bad because your body reacts negatively. And then they give you these like pills that would make you high and happy while watching straight porn or someone of your opposite sex in that way, and try to make that association and trying to change your attraction. And then also participants who were sometimes either forced as kids or chose as adults because they were pressured by religion to be a part of this conversion therapy. People that worked for the conversion therapy center or whatever would also go in and touch these individuals. Someone from their opposite sex would come in and sexually touch them to try to make them aroused. It's despicable. And the church encouraged it. The bishops, which are kind of like pastors, they would encourage their congregation members, if they were gay or had any sort of homosexual feelings, or as like the church likes to call it, same-sex attraction, like it's some sort of disease. But they would encourage them, say, hey, if you want to get into heaven, if you want to get over this, you have to go to this conversion therapy and you'll be cured. And they'd be like, oh yeah, lots of people get cured. But really, it like does not work. And up until like 2 months ago, conversion therapy was still allowed and legal here in Utah. And today, there's still talk conversion therapy. Now that the physical aspect of conversion therapy is illegal in Utah, now it is just talk therapy, which is still abusive. Both are horrid. And that's why I could never come out until I was on my own, because I went to college. I started college about 2 years ago and left, and well, I was kicked out, but of my house as soon as I graduated. Long story. But as soon as I went to college, I started learning all these different things about just the world, because I'd been in such a bubble. Because in Utah, it's like Mormonville. Almost everyone is Mormon. Salt Lake is kind of the outlier, I guess you could say, because like Utah County is like 98% Mormon. And
Wow.
so I grew up in Salt Lake County, Utah County, Weber County, and Davis County. So I kind of lived all over the place, but only in Utah. So I'm still very much in a bubble. And I started to date my now fiance, who is a never Mormon. He's never been Mormon. And I remember I was thinking to myself, because I'd been in college for like 2 months at that time, and I told him, I told him that I was bisexual, and he was the first person I ever told. I felt safe telling him, and he just acted like it was no big deal. I was so surprised. I expected such a negative reaction, but at that point in my life, I knew I couldn't keep hiding it. I knew that if I was going to be true to myself and no longer be so depressed and suicidal, because I had attempted many times growing up because I was bisexual, and very closeted. I knew that I couldn't keep living my life like a lie and keep acting like I was straight when I wasn't. And so I told him, and when he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I figured you were, I saw you checking out girls." It was like so different. I expected such a negative reaction, and it really just made me realize that if he can love me for who I am, I can love me too.
Oh.
And it was such a big turning point, because my whole life I've always hated myself. I've been told that God hates me, and I've been told, and in the church they tell you that God knows your heart, he knows your thoughts, he knows your mind. And so even though I wasn't out to anyone, no one had any idea, in my mind I thought that God knew, and therefore he hated me because I couldn't change. And the church will say, "Hey, if you go on a mission, if you get married in one of their temples, if you follow every single rule, always read your scriptures, always pray," because they have very strict rules, "then you'll be fixed, you'll be cured." And so I tried to do that. I was what's called a Molly Mormon. I followed every single rule ever. I didn't wear immodest clothing, which this would be considered immodest because my shoulders were
Woo,
showing.
shoulders.
We call them porn shoulders.
Oh wow.
That's what the church would call them, is porn shoulders. And then just like, you can't even drink coffee. You can't you can only date Mormons. Like, just all these different things that were just crazy rules, and I followed every single one of them, because the church would teach, if you do all those things, then your homosexual feelings will go away. And I did all those things for 19 years, and what happened, what changed me from being a total Mormon to an ex-Mormon was, a year ago, I was just kind of sitting on my bed and contemplating where I've been, where I am, and where I want to go in life. And it just kind of hit me. I was thinking about God, and I was thinking about all these contradictions, how the church was super racist and still has racist practices today, and how they're very sexist, but they used to be worse because they're always changing. It's funny because they say God is never changing. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Yet the gospel, as the church calls it, is always changing. Doctrine and principles and policies are changing all of the time. And sometimes they go back and forth, even, not just progressing. And so I was just thinking about all of that, and I hadn't done any anti-Mormon research, meaning I haven't, that's what the church calls it, if it's anything that puts the church in a bad light. So even if it's quotes from past prophets of the church, that's considered anti-Mormon literature if it makes the church look bad. It's really confusing and stupid. Yeah. Anyway, I hadn't even looked into any of that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Jehovah's Witnesses, we totally feel you on that, because we can't look at past literature for, it's called apostate literature, like their own quotes from past literature is quote, if it puts the Jehovah's Witnesses in a bad light. So
Yep.
but
yeah,
totally
so I was just thinking and about all these contradictions, specifically regarding homosexuals. And I just thought to myself, why would God create someone to be homosexual and then say, you can't act on it? You can't think this way. You can't feel this way. Thinking this is a sin too, not just acting on it. And I was just thinking, and I was like, you know what? The church teaches that God is like your father and we are his children, all of us. And I was thinking, a father would not do that. A father would
Right.
not say, you can't have a family. You can't be sealed forever, have an eternal family. You can't do all these things because you have this trial. Like, a father would not do that. And that's what just got me. That's when I went, oh my goodness, it's not real. There's
Right.
no way it can be real. And it just was a mix of emotions. Like, I felt relief because I was like, whoa, maybe I'm not so bad. I'm not a horrible person. And then sad because I felt like I'd been lied to my whole life. It was who I was, the foundation for me. And I was just angry. It was just so many different things. And since then, when my family found out that I was leaving the church and that I came out as bisexual, every single person disowned me.
Oh, I'm so
I
sorry.
do not have one single family member left. My grandparents, my cousins, my aunts and uncles, my mom, my stepdad, my siblings. The only person who I can say hasn't disowned me is my dad, but that's because he passed away when I was 17. So I know that he would be supportive because he was what's considered like an inactive Mormon, so he didn't follow every single rule. But I know that he had some lesbian friends that they would check out girls together, and he was totally cool with it. My dad, I remember this one time, he was talking to me and my sister, but he was just joking, but it really stuck with me. He said, if you guys ever are lesbians, that's totally cool because that means we can check out girls together. I won't judge you for that. He was kind of teasing, but it really stuck with me. It made me feel like, okay, if I can't cure myself, if I can't be fixed and I come out as bisexual, then at least I know I have one person on my side, but the one person who would have supported me is gone. So right now, the only person I have in my life is my fiance. I have a few friends, but I'm not super close with anyone. Just because, like, who I consider my best friend, she lives in Texas. And it's hard to, talk to her, but because we're both so busy, because I'm working on this podcast. And I guess back to my podcast, we kind of went off topic.
No, it's fine.
In my podcast, I talk about my experiences, the truth behind the church, and then sexuality and how it's totally okay to be you, and that no matter who you are, you deserve to be loved. You deserve to love someone. And, you deserve to feel like you're important and that you matter because you do. And so, yeah, the reason the apostate part is because that's what the church calls me, is an apostate, because I speak out against the church. Even so there's this guy who's super awesome named Sam Young. He put together an organization called Protect Every Child. And it was about, hey, bishops, please, can we change it where little kids aren't stuck in bishop offices with this older guy and this little girl or little boy, because they ask very sexually explicit questions. I was asked very sexually explicit questions, whether I masturbated, whether I got turned on by certain things, like so many different things that were very detailed. And as a 12-year-old, I'm like, what even is masturbation? Like, it's just crazy. And it's just so horrid and cringy. And I hated every moment of it. And so Sam Young, he's a former bishop, and he said, hey, can we change this to be where these questions aren't asked, or at least a parent to be in the room with the child. And the church went, nope, sorry, you can't speak out against the church in any way. And they excommunicated him for it. Just asking for a change that would make things safer. They're not okay with protecting kids. And it's all about control, because this religion is patriarchal and very racist. It's about white old men. And so it's just crazy that we're considered apostates for trying to change the world for the better, try to change the church for the better. And so that's where the apostate comes in.
Well, we get that label as well as Ex Jehovah's Witnesses. We're labeled as apostates. They go a little further, child. They call us mentally diseased apostates. So it's not just, it's extra shade on top of shade. And
yeah, we're called unruly children as well.
Wow. But you
can I just say, I don't know how many people know, but when I seen Sam Young's page and what he was doing, Protect Every Child, it moved me, because I thought he's doing what I'm doing as an activist against JW.org. So even though I'm not in Utah, I went and set up next to the JW cart with a table with Protect Every Child information, and did my bit that I can in the UK to kind of team up with him as much as I could, because obviously I couldn't get to Utah to do it. So that was my part to do that in sync with him.
Well, thank you so much
awesome.
for coming on. Before you go though, Natalie, is there any advice that you would give to someone in your position, someone in your shoes, if you was talking to Natalie in that lonely spot that you were in, and probably still are in sometimes, because being an apostate, we are all familiar with levels of shunning. So I know what it's like, because it's a very lonely world for me too, being shunned by all of my Jehovah's Witness family. What people don't realize is that, especially if you're born into the religion, all of your contacts, all of your family, everybody is in the religion, and they're always holding out this hope that you'll come back. But anyway, let's talk to the person that wants to leave and wants to come out and live in their truth.
I think it's important to know that not every experience is going to happen to everyone who leaves or comes out, because I do know people who had families that reacted positively that are Mormon, that they didn't follow every church rule and they embraced their gay child or their ex Mormon child. But the church teaches that you should shun them. It's actually to get into their temples. They have a temple recommend interview, and one of the questions is, do you support or affiliate with any organizations or people that are contrary to the church's teachings or the church? And so therefore, if you say, no, I don't do that, then you can go to the temple. But if you're like, yeah, I have a gay kid and I support them to be being happy, you can't go in the temple. And in order to go to heaven and be saved and have blessings, you have to go to the temple. So if you accept your gay child, or you are gay and you want to be you can't apparently go to heaven. And so it's really hard. And I think the important thing to realize is that it's not real. And I know that's really hard, especially if you are Mormon or questioning, because that is what you're taught. That's your whole life, that you're in a bubble. And there's what's called heart cell. And the church, will put out videos or say certain things that make you feel the Holy Ghost or the Spirit. But really, other advertising companies do the same thing. You see this poor little puppy sad and in a little cage, and your heart goes, oh, I want to help it. You feel the Spirit. It happens no matter what. It doesn't have to be religion related or related to God or Jesus. And so it's important to realize that you should be yourself authentically. Live your real life, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Those that matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter.
All right. I'm going to have to use that. I'm taking that.
Go for
Those
it. I
who,
heard it
what is
somewhere
it?
else. I didn't come up with that.
I still like it. Those who mind don't matter. What? How did it go? See, I don't forgot it
Yeah,
already.
those who mind that you're ex Mormon or that you're self, they don't really matter. And those who matter, they don't mind.
I love it. Yes. See,
Yeah,
that's church for us this today. Thank you. This is a Sunday
right? So you can
for the
feel
class
good
table.
about that. It's not like, some spirit. That's just your intuition. That's you as a person, as a human, connecting with other people. Like going out in nature for me is better church than any church I went to.
Yes.
Because I just feel so connected, and mindfulness and being one with yourself and meditating is so important. It's important for your brain. It's just important for your mental health all the way. Because I struggle with being suicidal and depression and anxiety and PTSD. I have tons of triggers from the abuse I endured sexually, mentally, verbally, emotionally, physically. Lots of different abuse. And so it's so important to connect with yourself and don't be afraid to ask for help. I see
Right.
a therapist every week and I'm not ashamed of it. We all need to rely on each other and sometimes get help from professionals. And that doesn't make you less of a person or not strong. It's actually stronger to recognize your weaknesses, recognize what you need help with and what you need to work on, and then act on it. That's true strength. And with connecting with people like you that has similar experiences, you can do that with Facebook groups. You can find people all over social media, different meetup things, and then listen to podcasts that relate to your life. Like we have people, we call our renegades our listeners, because renegades, you're forging your own path. You're choosing your life, and that's totally okay. And so being able to connect with like-minded people and people who support you for you is the best advice I could give.
And it's good advice. You have helped me today, and I'm not even ex-Mormon. So I guess if they got a checklist at the temple, then I'm not invited. I can't just walk into the temple. Because I
It's
thought you
not that great anyway. It's really weird rituals. So there's this guy called New Name Mike Norton, and he has a YouTube channel called New Name Noah, and he secretly recorded all the different temple rituals in the temple. But
wow.
it's so interesting to watch them and to see the contradictions of how they are constantly changing as well. Because the temple rituals are supposed to be sacred, which is just secret. And I remember when I watched those videos after I left the church, I was like, wow, had I gone through the temple and was so pumped up that this will be such a spiritual experience, so great, so wonderful and peaceful, I would have walked in and looked around and been like, wow, I am in a cult. I would have felt so uncomfortable because they do lots of weird things and invasive things as well. And so, yeah, if you want to learn more about the church and these rituals, you can check out New Name Noah on YouTube. There's tons of videos.
Okay, so I'm gonna look
But
at it.
yeah,
So quick story before you go. I connected
yeah,
with a Mormon online,
hmm
just because I was curious,
yeah,
and he is so awesome, so genuine. But I'm gonna have to go back and tell him no, because I talked to somebody else who told me y'all shun, because he claimed they do not shun.
mm,
And I know that the Jehovah's Witnesses do the same thing. Oh, we don't shun, but everybody just magically shun. Because I haven't talked to my mama in
yeah,
years. But one thing that he did that stuck out to me is that he, of course, sent two I guess missionaries or elders or whoever they were at my door, and they were really nice. And I
yeah.
don't know, girl, I don't need. I mean, I gave him my address, but I really didn't think because I met him online. I didn't. I'm thinking like, how he get somebody at my door in 2 days, and I just met him. He got somebody,
Yeah,
but he actually gave me a Mormon Bible. I don't know what
yeah,
you
the
call
Book
it,
of
but
Mormon.
the Book of Mormon, and
hmm
he autographed, not autographed it, but he actually wrote a letter like in
Like a
it, like
testimony. That's what he'd call it, probably.
yeah, like a handwritten something. And I thought, wow. So y'all more polished. Y'all done took it a step up with y'all door to door. I don't know. Jehovah's Witnesses get it together. Mormons is
They
passing
came
y'all
to
up.
my door and gave me one as well. And they were like, will you read this certain chapter? And I was like, okay, I'll give it a read. And it was basically if you're a celestial or is it a terrestrial sinner?
So
And
there's
the
like
levels.
what's called like degrees of glory. There's the celestial kingdom, which is heaven, the terrestrial kingdom, the telestial kingdom, and then hell or outer darkness.
Well, what I read basically was you're a sinner and you're sorry. You're a sinner and you don't know it, or you're a sinner and you know it and you still do it. And I thought, well, that one's me. I know who I am. But they never actually came back anyway, so I've still got the Book of Mormon somewhere.
I've got all the scriptures here still. Like I study them, which is another interesting thing is that the Bible and Book of Mormon contradict each other. There's like two other books as well that the church reads, and they contradict all each other. And they're always editing the books. So like the Book of Mormon has been edited like tons of times. There's been different editions. So there used to be, oh well, talking about what's called the Lamanites and the Nephites. And the Nephites are the white and delightsome. They're the righteous. So white and being white is considered righteousness. And Lamanites are considered, I guess, to the church today, Native Americans. And they're saying that they're cursed with a skin of darkness and their seed is not meant to be mingled and all those different things. And then there's Cain, who is, according to the church, all of his descendants are Black individuals, and how that's bad to
What they
have
say about
children
Black
together.
people? It's like I'm playing.
Oh my God, so much.
No,
Okay,
I know.
so
I looked up a few stuff, and then every time, can you tell me this? Have the church ever issued a formal apology for the stuff that they say about Black people?
Never.
Okay.
They've actually said we will never apologize for anything the church has ever done wrong because we don't do anything wrong. And that's an actual like quote, not word for word, but this guy, Delaney Jokes, says something like that. But there's this website called Missed in Sunday School. It's like what you missed in Sunday school, because it's like some sort of class. And it has like different topics like racism, LGBTQ, tithing, sexism, different things. And then they have quotes, these pictures of like a prophet or something that said something, and then the quote next to it of exactly what they said regarding like, Black people or regarding homosexual people. What? And then they have after you click on like the picture, underneath is like footnotes of all the places where you can see this quote, like proof of this is what's said. It's not just made up. Like these are legit quotes. And so, yeah, there's a lot. There was this one guy, Brigham Young. He was the second prophet of the church, and he said that something along the lines of Black people and white people, if they have children together, they will both die on the spot because they have a kid. But yeah, I don't see anyone having, mixed race marriages and children dying. So I don't think that works.
And it's little things like that. Like when our church or our old when the ex Jehovah's Witnesses or the Jehovah's Witnesses changes things like that, it's little things like that start to break change, and you start thinking like, something not right here. Well, Natalie, we thank you so much for coming on. I have linked all of your links here below with the ambidextrous apostate. That is the name of the podcast, because I was about to do it again. The ambidextrous podcast. Okay. And I also put the link of the Missed in Sunday School, and that's actually for my reference and I guess for y'all as well. I just don't want to make sure I want to go ahead and check that out because that is a cool site. And for Jehovah's Witnesses, we actually have a site. There is a site actually similar to what Natalie is talking about. It's called UK Watchtower Quotes, and he actually does the same thing. So that's he goes back and you can, and it's arranged by a section, and you can just look up all the crazy things that they used to teach. So thank you so much, Natalie. Don't be a stranger. We're going to actually have a show where we haven't thought of the title, but we kind of laughed it off like Mormons versus the Jehovah's Witnesses or something like that. Okay. They kind of talk about the differences in our relationships, our religions rather, and the fact that we're twinsies a lot too. There's a lot of
it's
things
pretty
too.
interesting.
So
And
don't be.
we've got an Amish friend who's in my
Yes,
group as well that's interested. So we thought Jehovah's Witnesses, Amish, Mormons. It'd be an interesting show.
I think so. It's
Cool.
already
I'm
interesting
excited.
hearing the differences. So thank you so much, Natalie. We will see you later. Say
See ya.
bye.
Thanks, bye.
All right, you guys. We are entering the other
Sorry.
part of our. Can you guys hear us? Part of our stream. I just want to flash this across the screen, because we're an hour and a half into our live stream today. So we finished segment 1 where we have talked about the LGBTQ experiences of their. Sorry, we've honored the LGBT community. Hopefully, by listening to the experiences of queer people. And yes, our panel is international. We're from different parts of the world. And now we're entering our segment 2, where we're gonna go. Molly is gonna lead us with a slide presentation, and please don't leave because we are gonna honor the lives of those who have lost loved ones or have lost their lives due to AIDS, suicide, queerphobia, and conversion therapy with a candlelit visual at the end. So I hope you are ready, Molly. Molly, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm sorry, y'all. I needed to go off screen and remove my makeup because I was crying and it was dripping and shit. So I was like, okay, it's not visible yet, but I know that, you know, the presentation and all was coming up, and I know that, you know, we see the audience sharing their experiences, and so yeah, I did remove my makeup. And let me bring up the presentation on my end because I have extra notes on my PC. That's here as well. I just need 1 second if that's okay.
Okay. And while you do that, I'll try to get up the slides.
Thanks, love.
I had them up, but I don't know what happened to them. But okay, let's do it again. Alrighty. And just let me know when you are ready, ma'am.
I'm sorry, y'all. Here I am. So yeah. In the presentation, we will, you know, go through some history and share more, you know, experiences and share more details of people who helped form the community. I like to refer to it as the GRSM community, by the way. So if you don't, you know, if you don't, I'm gonna explain that before I go into it because I don't want to confuse anyone. That would stand for gender, romantic, and sexual minorities, and it was coined by Jimmy Snow, to my knowledge, and he coined the term in order to be more inclusive towards, you know, asexuals and genderqueer people and other people who fall in between the lines and who don't necessarily have a clear I'm sorry, y'all, a clear, you know, label and definition yet. So GRSM is a more inclusive and shorter term to refer to the community. With that said, let's get into it, I guess. So the first slide is about Henry Christian Gerber, and he went to Germany as a soldier in the First World War, and upon returning in 1923 to the US, he was inspired by all the activists and all the organized push and all the organized movement to secure civil rights and equality for homosexuals. And so that seeing that inspired him to, when he arrived back to the US, to start a similar, organized movement in Chicago. And he was one of the first organizers in the US for queer rights and queer equality and queer representation. And next
Thank
up
you.
we have.
Before we go to the next slide, I want to say thank you, Natalie, for staying on. You're welcome back. I know I just told everybody you were leaving, and now you're back. Thank you for staying with us. And where is Ben? There you go. You're back. There you go.
I just have to say, this is beautiful. Thank you, Molly, for putting this together. This is so amazing.
Oh no! Don't thank me. Thank them. In all honesty, I threw up this idea in the group with this eternal gratefulness and thankfulness that I have in my heart for these people and appreciation that I have for them, because they not only represented the queer community as it should be, as something to cherish and something to respect and accept, but they also pushed for legislation, representation, and an organized movement to pave our way. And I look at all these people who were being mentioned in this presentation, and the many more who could not, who I could not find more information on, or all the stuff that I missed in my ignorance, or So if anyone in the audience or in the panel sees that I missed someone who should be mentioned, please mention it and educate us, because that's definitely the point. The point that this show is here for, and this segment is here for.
All right, tell us a little bit about Alan.
Yes, he was the information technician and the intelligence, so the spy, basically, who cracked the Enigma code during the Second World War. And it is said that without his work, the war would have lasted at least 2 years longer. And his input during the Second World War actually led to the technology that we now use in modern computers, phones, tablets, and the like. He was 39 years old in 52 when he started a relationship with a fellow gay man, Arnold Murray, and their home has been robbed. So they called the police, and they found that the two men were living together, and from the personal effects, they figured out that they were in a relationship, and both of the men were convicted. He pleaded guilty, and he was granted probation conditional on his agreement to undergo hormonal changes designed to reduce libido. That would mean chemical castration. Basically, he received a bunch of female hormones and hormone suppressants, and in 52, just about 2 years after his conviction, he was found dead at the age of 41, and investigation found that he committed suicide. The next slide is on the first ever pride flag that is currently held at the Smithsonian. The flag with its 8 colors represented sexuality by hot pink, life by red, healing by orange, the sun by yellow, nature by green, art by blue, harmony by indigo, spirit by violet. And it was designed by San Francisco artist Gerber and has been adopted worldwide. But as you can see behind me, the current modern pride flag does not contain indigo and hot pink. That is because back in those days, those colors and those materials to sew from were not available. And therefore they needed to simplify down to red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple.
Okay, Molly, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you're breaking up for our audience
Sorry.
and for our panel. So I don't know if you have it, I don't know
Oh.
which device you're on. I don't know if you can use headphones or.
Hang on, let me see if my headphones help. Is it any better?
I think so. Well, go ahead.
Cool.
It seems
Sorry.
it's in and out. It's in and out.
Okay, is it better now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Cool. Sorry. Okay. This picture is very special. I actually learned about this person like 2 days ago, and his name is William Dorsey Swan, or otherwise known to his friends as the Queen. And he was a slave. He was born a slave on a plantation, and in his free time he sew dresses, and with other slaves he held the first recorded drag races, and they were actually policed, raided, and detained multiple times between the 1890s to the early 1900s, and for keeping a disorderly house. That was a charge for running a brothel, and dressing in drag qualified as running a brothel back then. And basically, after his first arrest, it was reported in the Washington Post of the day, and that article gave him such an exposure that his drag balls came to be renowned and quite famous. And it came with grave risks, though, because, as I said, they were detained, and after the early 1900s, his brother took over as the mother and as the queen. Here we can see Stonewall, and Stonewall is a very peculiar place. It is credited with basically launching the queer movement into a new height, and it happened in June 1969 in Greenwich Village, New York, at the Stonewall Inn, as the name suggests. And in the early hours, police raided the gathering place, knowing that it's usually a gathering point for all kinds of queer people. And they started arresting the employees and the people present, the patrons, and basically why they raided the place is because the inn did not pay protection money to the police. And it is to this day uncertain and unknown on who threw the first rock and who stood up first. But as you can see on these pictures, the police were roughing up people and the people were throwing stuff back. Some accounts say that it was Marsha P. Johnson who threw the first piece back, and some other accounts say that it was the lady up on the next slide, whose name is Stormy Delavry. And she was born in New Orleans to an African-American mother and a white father in 1920. And she organized and took part at the first now known organized march at 1970, known as Pride. And then the Stonewall raid happened. She was basically the first to get detained and to start fighting the police, according to eyewitnesses. And she pleaded with the onlookers that, why don't you do something? Why aren't you helping us? And other than Stonewall and being a part of the first ever March for Pride, she was known for being a groundbreaking drag performer, and she wore dapper suits and ties, and basically was the first popular gender fluid dresser and became a major force in the butch lesbian and drag ball scene. And here's a quote from her that says, it was a rebellion, it was an uprising, a civil rights disobedience, it was no damn riot. And basically, this is what I always bring up when we talk about, Black Lives Matter and how some protests turn very violent or have a so-called notoriety for being violent, because an abuser won't listen to silence. An abuser will listen to loudness and action. So basically, they did nothing wrong in my book. They defended themselves, and they had every right to. And on this picture, we can see Marsha P. Johnson and other protesters. And here we see Marsha P. Johnson and one of the last photographs of her, to my knowledge. She was an activist, a prostitute, a drag performer for nearly 3 decades. And she basically grew up in street life in Greenwich Village. She was a central figure in the gay liberation movement. And she was, like I mentioned, also there at Stonewall. And she modeled for Andy Warhol. She battled severe mental illness. She was lonely and effectively homeless for most of her life. She died at 46 under murky circumstances in the summer of 1992. And many friends mourned for her, and sadly, her death did not attract attraction in the mainstream press. But the community, the GRSN community, still to this day regards her in high prestige and acknowledges her part in solidifying the movement and for being an advocate on behalf of AIDS patients. And here we have the New York ballroom scene of the 1980s, which, as you can see, is very colorful and very creative. It was a countercultural phenomenon, and it was rooted in necessity and defiance. It was basically an underground movement where they used color and dancing, and they figured that dancing, or as they called it, voguing, was genderless, and it was needed to express how gender and style and sexuality is fluid. And when they vogued, they evoked, as you can possibly guess, the Vogue covers and those, fancy poses that the models struck on those pictures. And they formed houses.
Did we lose Molly?
Which became or father through education and through. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I have to say you're still going in and out. But go ahead, Molly. You're doing good.
I'm sorry, I don't know what the fuck is going on with my tech right now. So yeah, here we can see some pictures of the drag and the ballroom scene. And the big point of 20th century activism was these 5 points. The major point was that queer people were psychoanalyzed and hospitalized. That led to what's known, like what Natalie mentioned, conversion therapy. They were sexualized and decreased to sex, which led to labeling queerness as amoral and dirty, and also fueled the motivation behind conversion therapy. This notion led to queer identities being criminalized, and only in the last 20 to 30 years have we started doing proper research into the identities and properly understanding them. Here we see the current second design pride flag and the Philadelphia pride flag introduced in 2017 to honor Black Lives Matter. Here we see a Black Lives Matter pride protest specifically about Black trans lives matter, because Spencer, I guess you wanted to say a few words on this one because it's more prevalent in your experience.
Well, I just wanted to say that, in the Black community, a lot of people wanted to know why they had a separate march, like why Black trans lives matter. They said that it was taken away from our own marches, the Black Lives Matter marches, that or bringing in gender or bringing in the LGBTQ community is included. Well, a lot of Black trans people fought back, and I'm talking about on Twitter, by saying that no, in our community, the Black community, there is a stigma when it comes to homosexuality and gay and queerness, and Black trans lives, if I can keep it real, do not matter. We have Black men who kill Black trans women when they somehow they're outed or they find out that they're trans, or somehow Black men feel like it's less than, they feel less than if they come out. We call them DL in our community. That they on the DL with. So I'll just say this. Um, Even though Black lives matter, Black trans lives matter too. So all Black lives matter, not just some Black lives and other Black lives. And I thought this march was just striking for me, to see them marching in the streets, because when we've had Black Lives Matter protests before, they've never had a separate march. And I think we should support Black trans lives matter movements just alongside the Black Lives Matter movement, because as you are going to get to, and one of the reasons for our visual, Black trans women and men die at an alarming and are killed at an alarming rate, versus those who are not of color. And I just wanted to say that our visual is coming. I don't know if you can hear me, Molly.
Yeah.
But our visual is coming up in the next 5 minutes here. So if you want to go ahead and get your candles, the audience, you can go ahead and grab your candles now, and then join us for the after show, where we will be discussing even more experiences. We have even more guests, some guests that you haven't seen here, because we couldn't fit them all in our one show. So our next slide.
Yeah, on this slide you can see the places where there are any sort of sexual orientation laws in place as of 2019. And as you can see, in the majority of Asia, Africa, and in some places in Latin America, it is either illegal or punishable by death to be any sort of non-straight, non-cisgendered identity. So I just put it here in order to fucking present to you why it is not a fucking choice to be queer. And Malak Al-Kashef, and I know I totally whitewashed and butchered her name. She's Egyptian and she's a trans woman, and she was arrested late 2018 for debauchery, which in Egyptian means for being not straight and not cisgender. And they quoted inciting political unrest because she made a tweet disagreeing with the Egyptian government. And basically, they kept her in the male prison and subjected her to very invasive and abusive medical tests. and who knows what else kind of sexual abuse. And I was actually part of the campaign last year with Amnesty International that helped free her. And on this slide, you can see a little something I put together, how to be an ally. I wanted to say, a few words on that. One of those things is that listen. Like, you don't need to speak, you need to listen. Listen to the people, listen to queer people, and respect their boundaries. Don't expect queer people to be your walking queer lexicon, because we don't know it all. I know some definitions, but as we discussed through the panel, our experiences are vastly different. Like Natalie's experience is vastly different than mine. So is Bethany's, so is Ben's, so is Emma's, so is Chessa's, so is everyone else's. So go with what the actual queer person says that you're speaking to, because they will be able to tell you what's up. They will be able to set their own boundaries. And if you're actually curious, Google is free, first of all. Second of all, there are queer YouTubers like Luxander, Jimmy Snow, myself. I make queer related videos with respect to religion, like with regards to religion and without religion, just sharing experience. So check out queer creators, check out Google. It's your friend.
Okay, do you want to tell us a
And
little bit about the Trevor Project?
yes, one of the best resources I found as a queer activist and ally was the Trevor Project. They are one of the most well researched, well put together queer youth crisis center. They have a 24/7 chat service, text message service, and call service. As you can see, they have guides on coming out, glossary, family and friends, asexual, bisexual, HIV/AIDS, relationships, homelessness, and in school, all kinds of things. They have ally trainings, materials for allies, especially gender queer and transgender issues. So they are a very great source to turn to if you actually want to get educated and if you actually want to help people. And this is a snippet from their website on suicide. And as you can see, it's the second leading cause of death among young people aged 10 to 24. And many of LGBT youth contemplate suicide, almost 3 times at the rate of heterosexuals. So with that said, today we want to remember with a humble heart and with gratefulness those who we lost to AIDS, queerphobia, police brutality, abuse, and those who paved our way for us to be seen, heard, and understood. Got them. Okay. This is a picture of Nazi remembrance of the Nazi victims. This is footage of remembrance for war veterans and for victims of war and imprisonment. And this is a picture of Sarah Hegazi, who died about 2 weeks ago by committing suicide. She's also Egyptian. She was also imprisoned, and she actually managed to flee to Canada, and yet we still lost her due to PTSD. And stories like Malak Akashev's and hers are still happening in 2019 and 2020. And we should not let her have died in vain. Let's honor her and the others so that no more people have to die, so that we don't lose any more people. And here are two pictures. One of them is the Orlando shooting candle vigil, and the other one is a Trans Remembrance Day picture.
I'm sorry, I'm talking and my mic is on mute. So that was the last slide there. We thank you guys for staying here for the candlelit visual, and for staying with us throughout the entire stream today. I know we went over a little than we are usual. Molly, did you have any closing thoughts before we go on to the after show, with his 15 minutes after following our stream?
I guess my closing thoughts would be that we should listen, and if any ideology tells you that someone is less human than you are, that ideology is not an ideology that you should follow. Because do you see any difference between me and yourself just because I'm not straight? I don't think you do. And yeah, why does it matter to you who I want in my bedroom or who I don't want in my bedroom? You know, it's irrelevant to my humanity. And queer acceptance and queer rights are not like, what kind of coffee do you like, or do you like pineapples on your pizza? My fucking human rights are not an opinion. And if you think that they are, I don't want you in my life. And I'm gonna quote Jimmy Snow here because he summarized it very well. I am done waiting for you, straight people, to understand. I am done waiting around for straight people to sympathize and empathize with me. I am done trying to appease you and make you comfortable. If you're not comfortable around my queerness, I don't want you in my life, because my queerness is not my entire identity and not my entire life, but it's a big chunk of it. And I'm not gonna tone it down to appease anyone.
All right, thank you, Molly. And Emma?
I just want to say on behalf of Bethany, who's with us now, she's having trouble sending a message to the chat. She said anybody that wants to contact her for support or advice, her name is Bethany Morgan on Facebook, and she said you're welcome to contact her.
Thank you so much, Bethany, for coming on. Are you able to talk, or is it the sound messed up there?
No, I can
Okay, there you go.
talk. It's just I was trying to send a message in the comments, and I was having trouble doing that. So.
Did you have any
yeah, anybody that just anybody that's struggling, anybody that needs an ear or shoulder to cry on, or has questions about the being shunned, or anything about what I talked about earlier, or I just want them to know that I can be a resource to them. Like, I've been out for quite a long time, and if you're just coming out of the closet and, need some extra help, a hand to help pull you out, I definitely want to be there for people. So
Thank you so much, Bethany. And so, Ben, thank you so much. You have been our panel guest today. You have been hanging with us almost all day today. We thank you. And so, did you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. I want to also send my love and respect to all of you, and thank you for the beautiful history that you shared. I know that I come on here and I'm very Ben about everything. In my professional life, I do offer grief support, and I've just gone through an education to be a death doula to assist with transitions, not just with death, but with rediscovering your identity and leaving a legacy that you want to leave. So I also, in harmony with Bethany, I want to offer myself as a resource for those who want one-on-one chat. I will be very honest. I do sliding scales, so money is not an issue. But I do offer services that are very professional, and I'm here for anybody who thinks that they could benefit from what I have to offer. And lastly, just again, to Natalie and to all of the guests who are here today, to Bethany, I'm just so thankful for you living your truest selves, because alone, none of us can do this alone. It takes all these beautiful voices, and I wish Chessa was here for this last, because she has her Use Our Voice, and she's the one who really, really first helped me to start to speak up. And so to her, Deborah McDaniel, and to many we didn't mention, just thank you so much for being true to yourselves. I can't ask for more than that. Thank you.
And Emma?
I just want to say my last words are written behind me. Be you, be proud.
Yes. And Natalie?
Yeah, I just want to say that my life motto is every day I strive to become the best me I can be. And I hope that everyone else will think of that too. You shouldn't try to be someone that you're not or be someone else. All you can be is you. And if every day you wake up and go, hey, this is what I'm going to do, it's a fresh start, you can do anything.
I guess my final words would be join us at the after party for more experiences and more guests. And on a serious note, and I am serious about that, but on a glass table, tip, I would just say that to the fundamentalists and Christians out there, stop. And I say that because I was a fundamentalist and I was a Christian. It was in one of the strictest sects. I was in Jehovah's Witnesses, and then I moved to a non-denominational church where they were not as strict and they more embracing. There were gays in the church, but not in the church. You know what I mean? Like, we would be nice to you, but you can't be on the ministry. You could be involved in anything else. It was clearly discrimination. Don't get married in our church, that sort of thing, even though they were happy to take their tithes. So I say to those fundamentalist Christians out there, some of the people out there who listen to our stream and went on past, or might be listen to our stream and kind of said, oh, are they talking about LGBT issues? Yes, we do. We do. As you can see, we went around the glass table earlier. If you were earlier in our show, it's something that is important to each one of us as allies, as members. And so I just say to the Christian and fundamentalist community that you have to you're going to have to move because times are changing. LGBTQ rights, they're not going to be left behind. We had a landmark legislation that the other day that allowed LGBT members to not be discriminated against on the job. And that was built off the 1964 Civil Rights Act that was pushed through because of the civil rights movement, because of blacks being discriminated here in America. So we are leapfrogging each other. The Black Lives Matter movement was founded by 3 queer women. So it's intimately tied. For those who keep asking, well, what does Black Lives Matters have to do with LGBTQ? It's it was founded by 3 queer women. So of course that's why they want to be allies with the LGBT I'm sorry, LGBTQT. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. Community, the gay community. So of course they're going to partner with them. So for those who keep asking what that got to do with it, has everything to do with it. And as you can see,
Roots.
yes, in our history lesson by our lovely Molly on our panel today, uh, it's intimately tied up with one another. So
Yeah,
go ahead, Molly.
can I just say, because I know that other than the black community having more issues with queer phobia, I know that white gays like to be racist. So can I just say, if you're queer and white and try to be racist, learn your history, because honey, this movement, this culture, your slang, saying beat face, slay, yes, all those cute little slang words that you use come from black trans women motherfuckers. And to all those fundamentalists who Spencer mentioned, well, move bitch, I'm gay. And you can't do anything about it.
And that ain't no show wouldn't be the same if Molly didn't end on that note, y'all.
Preach. Preach.
Right. So we thank you so much for joining us. So we want to invite you guys 15 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Just go get something to drink, whatever you like, because everybody drinking on different stuff. So go get a drink and come right back.
And I'm hosting my first ever live.
I know it's gonna be wild. And even though you're going to see some familiar faces from this stream, we do have a different lineup for the next stream. So there's going to be different faces there, and it's going to be a laid back atmosphere.
Yeah.
And Bella is telling me it's time to go, y'all. So
Bring
we're
your drink all 10. Just come chill, chat.
Yep, 15 minutes in 15 minutes. So we'll see you there. And thank you for all of our guests for joining us. Thank you, Natalie, for sharing your Ex Mormon experience. I hope you saw some of our similarities, and we want to have you back, like I said. And thank you so much, Bethany, for coming on. Chessa, if you're out there, I know you had to go. Hopefully we'll see you at the after party. Thank you. And Paul for joining us. We thank you for everybody who signed up. We know we couldn't get to everybody and all of your comments.
Thank you.
Oh yes, and Carmen. If you're watching, thank you so much, Carmen, for joining us. So we're gonna go ahead and sign off and say bye.
Bye.